All right, so this is...
Wait. Is this going to be a 3-hour-long episode? This is the Canon Fodder Podcast episode...
3.
This is the third one, right?
Yeah, because it was...
After editing the Dead Space one, it feels like the 6th.
Because it was Andromeda, and then...
Dead Space,
and then this.
And now Borderlands.
Yep.
And if you've been listening along, too, you may have caught up on our Diecast, which is our D&D, unplanned but awesome D&D podcast that we're going to continue with because it was pretty fun.
That was a lot of fun.
So we're on to Borderlands Gunsight. This is a book by John Shirley, who, if you happen to be tuned into my last podcast project, has done some other video game writing. He wrote Bioshock Rapture, which I liked a lot, so I was actually looking forward to reading Borderlands Gunsight.
Yeah, I was not looking forward to this one at all.
Why? You want to unpack that for us?
Fetch quests.
That is... a blanket statement that is also completely true.
And I forgot how broken the leveling system is.
Hey, Kyle, did you finish Borderlands?
No, I didn't.
Why not, Kyle?
Because I went into the last mission, which was recommended at level 28, I believe it was. I was level 30, and I can't go through it because I ran into 3 badass engineers that heal themselves, and I don't have powerful enough weapons or enough berserk to finish them off.
So what you're saying is you're just not brick enough to break that level.
No, apparently I'm not enough brick.
Okay, so a couple things we got to get out of the way first. I am Travis Knight. I'm the host, co-host. I'm the producer. I edit this thing, and you are
Kyle Newcomb. I
think you're the host because you usually lead the introductions.
I usually do. This is the first time you've taken the introduction.
That's true. I think it's because I took the initiative on this booking game to begin with.
Yeah, you kind of just ripped this introduction out of my hands.
Tough. You're just not brick enough to do the introduction.
I was just getting ready to say, you bricked it away from me.
So the central point of our podcast is to determine whether or not the tie-in novels to video games actually, and in any meaningful, appreciable way, expand upon the video game itself. To recap very quickly, we determined that Mass Effect Andromeda Nexus Uprising, our first tackle, did not really expand on Mass Effect Andromeda in a meaningful way.
No.
In Dead Space Martyr, our second book, we actually loved it. We thought it was a really cool expansion of unitology, which is the main religion in the game and also the driving force of the first game's events. So we're 1-1 right now.
Yeah, we're 1-1.
And I think for the first time since we started this, you and I are coming at the game from very different angles. Because we both didn't really like Mass Effect, but we're Mass Effect fans. We both thought Dead Space was cool, but you hadn't finished the first game.
Yep.
And I've played all of the Borderlands games, except for the Telltale spinoff. And you hate Borderlands.
Absolutely despise it.
Can you tell us why that is?
Because I don't like games that are just constant fetch quests. They bore me. Like, I cannot play WoW because of it. I've tried probably half a dozen times to play WoW, and I can't do it. I can't play Diablo 3 for the same reason.
So you're not a loot quest gamer.
I like games that have the loot quests, but not just menial go kill 10 of these.
So if the loot system is the central system, it's not for you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Because that's what Borderlands and Diablo are, right? It's get better loot.
By grinding.
Do you like JRPGs?
No, I hate them.
Okay, all right. So then that kind of follows.
Any of the free-to-play MMOs, anything like that, I've tried dozens and dozens and dozens of them, and I can't do it because I try and find stuff to occupy my time. I've got ADD when it comes to games. I like to hop between games and, trying to find one that holds my attention.
That's fair. That's a pretty fair appraisal of. I'm similar. I don't really care for loot games. I play Borderlands primarily for the co-op to play with my friends, and then later on my wife. My wife is a big Borderlands fan. My wife is not a big Borderlands fan. She's a very small person.
Yes, she is.
But she really does like Borderlands too. And she likes it primarily because it's a zone out and collect new loot game. So she's kind of diametrically opposed to us. I'm I could take a loot system or I could leave it. I mean,
Yeah.
If I know the guns really well, like in Halo or in your regular shooter, you've got your standard assault rifle, SMG, pistol, shotgun, sniper. Like I like that.
Yeah, in games like, I love the RPG genre. Absolutely love it. But when it's a loot-based RPG or a JRPG or anything like that, I just can't get into them. Like, I love, like, World of Tanks, World of Warships. I mean, those are free MMOs where you level your ships up and you can get better ships and stuff like that, but it's not, like, the core of the game. Like, you can't progress, through the game. Like, if you can't quite get to the next level to get the next tank, you can still play with your old tank.
So is this are those like MOBAs, like Dota?
No, it's not like Dota. It's, team deathmatch, stuff like that. You go against...
Oh, okay.
And the way the system works is it pairs you with people who have comparable tanks. So you're not, like in WoW, where, if you go in the PvP area as a level 20, you're not going to get ganked by a level 100, who you have no chance of defeating. You get paired with the people who are on your level.
See, Borderlands has a very different problem, because when you do play multiplayer, it's cooperative, but what I always run into when I play with friends is that I never have good enough loot, and even if I wanted to, I couldn't go buy better loot with my actual hard-earned cash. You just have to grind. And I am not a fan of games where any kind of luck versus mechanical or tactical play is required, because although I won the life die, race, sex, education, the privilege dice set, I have the worst day-to-day luck.
Yeah,
Things break around me and lights turn red around me in a hilariously predictable curve. So if it's a game that I'm just like a slot machine, I'm waiting for something to pop out, I am always going to get the basic plain weapon. And this is evidenced by the fact that when I finished Borderlands 1, I didn't have a single orange weapon. I had all blue weapons.
I think I had one.
And I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be handed those weapons.
I had one, and it was a rocket launcher.
I had all blue weapons.
And when I got to the end, unfortunately, once you hit that last quest, it's point of no return.
Yeah, it is.
So if you find that you don't have enough, you're not high enough level, you're stopped.
So I always get pushed away from luck-based games because it's almost pointless for me to try, which I guess to counter that you could argue, well, unless you try, you're never going to know. But like, nah, I got other things to do with my life.
Yeah.
I don't need to get the next badass blistering shotgun or whatever. And also, this is the second point I was going to make earlier. We're going to have to perforce swear a little bit in this episode, just because some of the character names actually involve profanity. But we're going to keep it on the DL. We're going to try to be as family friendly and, whatever, young ear friendly as we can be, as usual. So, Borderlands, you don't like it.
No.
That's well established. The mechanics, the systems, even the gameplay you just don't like.
Even as a first-person shooter, the mechanics are so broken.
The first one is very wooden. I'll give you that. I think the second one plays a lot better.
I mean, I was using a sniper rifle, and granted, we both played as Brick.
That's true, yeah.
And Brick isn't meant to be using a sniper rifle, but I'd have the crosshairs right dead center in the chest of an enemy, and I wouldn't get a hit.
I role played as Brick, so I punched every boss to death. I was pretty proud of myself for that.
I eventually did the same thing. I went and paid the in-game currency to respec all in the Berserk.
I went right down the Berserk column with just enough in the other one to boost my health and my shields, and otherwise I was just straight up Berserker, or whichever one is the one that allows Brick to frenzy, which would lead to me just clicking wildly on my computer while my wife watched TV, just yelling, Brick! While I punched things to death, which was the most fun that I had with this game, because even though I've played all three of them, I don't particularly like Borderlands either. It's one I could take or leave. I'm that way with Fallout and a fair amount of other games too. I know some diehard Fallout fans. I like them, but I'd just as same never touch it again.
Yeah, I'm the same way too. Of course, as I sit here in a Fallout shirt, but
yeah. As I've gotten older, I've gotten a little more interested in Fallout, but I kind of missed the Fallout 3 craze. And Borderlands, though, I just, I take it or leave it. I think the mechanics are fine as a first-person shooter, but frankly, as I leave my 20s, I'm less and less interested in first-person shooters.
Yeah.
Halo was kind of my last lingering dingleberry, and the last one soured me on that experience.
Yeah, it did.
So most of the games that I play now are strategy games. I've been going back to the classic RPGs like Baldur's Gate. I just started it the other day. Pillars of Eternity, I really fell in love with. So going back to Borderlands was like going back to middle school. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a culture shock.
It was so immature. And the book suffers from that too, I think.
Yeah, the book does suffer from that.
The last point that I want to make is that even though we sound negative, like what you like and own what you like, it's cool if you like Borderlands. I occasionally am asked to play co-op with my wife, and I don't mind. It's fine. She has fun with it, and I have fun with her playing it.
Yeah.
But my own personal history with Borderlands is pretty spotty. When the first one came out, I was in college, and I shared an Xbox and a TV with my buddy at the time. I remember watching him get so obsessed by the loot system that he got like physically unhealthy because he'd stayed up for like 36 hours straight.
Good God.
And his girlfriend was worried about him, and I was worried about him, and he looked really unhealthy. And then when the second one came out, I kind of waited. I didn't buy it right away. It wasn't an impulse thing, but I got talked into buying it by a friend, and then we co-opted, Lindsay and I, with him and his brother. And him and his brother would just blow ahead and do the fetch quests, and I was completely contextless. And it soured me on the experience, whereas my wife came at it from a very different angle.
Yeah.
She just liked the fact that she could keep up with him and blow everything up, and it became a positive experience for her.
I had the same experience you did with 2. Yeah. I had, my roommate at the time was big into Borderlands. The second one came out, he bought it right away, and him and I would, split screen co-op. I think that was
actually about the time that I realized I needed glasses too, which are broken and in my coat pocket. But I couldn't read the in-game prompts, and they were rushing so hard I couldn't read couldn't read what was going on, let alone keep up with them.
I think actually that spoiled me on Borderlands too, because you're the one you power leveled me through.
Did I?
Yeah.
That was what spoiled me on Diablo 2. It's the only experience with Diablo I have is I had my friends insisted that I play it, and they power leveled me in the cow level. And I hated that game so much.
You know what? I have the same experience with Diablo 3. A couple of my coworkers, they bought me the game and just powered me through the campaign. Because you can't go like open world until you finish the campaign. I was trying to do it on my own and trying to get context to the levels. And they just blip right through.
Having to grind and build context is really tough to do together, because it gets so strung out.
Yeah.
I do want to put it on record right here, though, Kyle. I apologize for ruining Borderlands for you and making your life gray and dimensionless. Shall we get to it?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to pick up the pieces that you miss as we go, because I know there's some areas where you just kind of faded out, and I picked up this staff, and I'll help you cover the ending, too, since you got pinned.
So the game opens with Marcus telling the legend of Pandora and of the Vault Hunters, and he tells of the guardian angel of the Vault Hunters and who he is. And Marcus is the gun seller.
Cool.
Really cool soundtrack after that, though.
Yeah, I like Caged Elephant. I get introduced to them through Borderlands. Something good came of it.
But that's like the opening cinematic, before you really kind of get into the art style of the game. And I think it's worth mentioning the art style of the game. It's very comic booky.
It's deliberately like that, because this came out at the same time as Rage. They have a lot in common in terms of gameplay. But one of the things that Gearbox, the developers, changed was that they took the Rage style aesthetics and turned it into comic books and cel shaded. And I think it benefits for it. It looks nice, even still. It
does look really good. So you pick your character, and of course we both picked. You get off the bus in Firestone to someone talking to you, saying that they will lead you to the vault and to trust the funny little robot you see as you get off.
The funny little robot, you say?
Robot. And it introduces the CL4
Claptrap. Skip their stupid sci-fi Star Trek jargon.
Or Claptrap. He gives you your Echo comms and your HUD module and all your stuff to start the game. And with Brick, you start with a shotgun. Claptrap leads you into the peaceful town of Firestone just as it gets attacked by bandits. Seems to happen a lot.
Mm-hmm. Pandora is essentially Australia on steroids, right?
Yeah.
Pandora, by the way, is the name of the planet. It's effectively a garbage dump world.
Yeah, it is.
And all of the creatures that live there and all of the bandits and thieves and other unmentionables from the Empire have been shipped to Pandora to coexist amongst the many poisonous and poisoner enemies.
And irradiated. So you clear the bandits out. Mystery Woman talks to you again, saying that she knew you were the one and she'll contact you again soon. Then you get introduced to Dr. Zed.
Okay.
With his cool little animation.
Yeah, I do. I actually kind of like those. They help make the characters who are otherwise completely unmemorable memorable.
Yeah, they do. Like Naito's. But we'll get to him. Dr. Zed is your primary quest giver. You do a few minor things for him, then get a quest about Nine Toes. Mystery Woman tells you after you accept the quest that people don't trust you yet and that you need people to find the vault. And helping people is the best way to earn their trust. So Dr. Zed sends you to meet TK, who sends you on a few more quests. One of us just get his leg back.
Yeah, these are kind of funny. I thought it was funnier when he ended up dead.
He's the one who actually gives you the quest to kill Nine Toes and 3 balls. They made sure to put that in his little
boss animation.
Okay. After killing Nine Toes, the Mystery Woman contacts you again and says that people will try to mislead and use you and to not be swayed in your purpose. The vault is real, and we, as in her and your character, will find it and that she'll be watching.
So, at this point, what the heck is supposed to be in the vault?
Untold riches.
I don't know why I need to go to the vault since there's stacks of cash in literally every single container that you walk past.
Yeah, I don't know.
Who's the guardian angel?
No.
Me neither. Let's get to the next part.
You then return to Zed, who points you to the bounty board, which points you to Scooter, who puts you on a quest line to fix the catch-a-ride station. This is where cars live.
Ugh.
Get you one. After the catch-a-ride repair, Zed points you towards Shep, and he sends you on a quest line to kill Sledge at the mine. This is where you got lost. You texted me and was like, I'm going after someone named Shep, and I'm thoroughly confused.
Oh, yeah. Do you actually go after Shep, or is he a quest giver?
He's the quest giver.
That explains why nothing happened when I bricked on him.
So when you get to the mine gate, after a ton of stupid side quests,
I skipped most of those.
Some of them you had to do because you had to grind.
That was what tended to happen, but a lot of the quests I just outright skipped in favor of just going around and punching things to death while yelling brick.
All right, fair enough.
I think that's maybe the difference in our playstyles. You were doing the missions. I was just killing everything in sight and listening to audiobooks instead.
So when you get to the mine gate, the Mystery Woman says that everything so far has been simple and that now...
That is true, but in a very different sense than she intended.
Yeah, now you're about to face a real challenge in Sledge and not to underestimate him.
Nah, I punched her to death. It was good.
I shot him.
Should have played as Mordecai.
Well, when I started the game, I thought the book was going to be focused around Brick, because Brick's on the cover of the book.
Mm-hmm.
I was really sad when the first half of the book was Mordecai.
Mm-hmm. Although, to be fair, if the book was about Brick, it would have been really short.
Yeah. Mystery Woman says that Sledge is a powerful brute with a powerful shield and not to let him touch you.
Punched him to death.
Actually, you know what? I think I punched him too. And then while my Berserk was recharging, I'd take pot shots at him to keep his shield down. After getting the Iridium artifact, which is what is irradiating everyone, is Iridium, the Mystery Woman tells you that the artifact is part of the key to the vault.
Yeah, and I think this is where you got a little lost too later on in the game, is ultimately it boils down to collecting these three
keys.
Not 4, but 3 keys.
Yeah.
And they just kind of blow past it in the game. Like, you'd forget that you'd picked the thing up unless you were really paying attention and you'd made the mistake of believing you'd bought a game with a story.
Yeah.
Or you were digging through your inventory. Not that it helped the description. But this is essentially a game of you got to find 3 chunks of this key and put them back together so that you can open a vault that is supposed to have untold treasures. That's it. It's very, very simple now, which is fine because, I mean, again, it's not a it's not a story-based game. It's a loot game.
Yeah.
So insofar as it gives you...
With a rough story in it.
Yeah, a sketch. It's no more than a sketch.
But, so, after lots of random missions to grind... you get the next boss, Crom. After you kill him, you get the next piece of the key. The Mystery Woman says she's always watching. Weird. Then you get the mission to clear out Janestown, talk to a barbarian claptrap, which I actually thought was pretty comical.
I like this game's use of claptraps more than the later games. The later games, they went really hard on, like, claptrap is our thing. This one works better. Like,
Yeah.
They're just, they use claptraps in more variegated roles.
After you talk to the barbarian claptrap, Mystery Woman says the channel looks insurmountable, but it is possible.
Blah, 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 blah.
Trying to suck you into a story. You get to the trash coast, and Mystery Woman says the last challenge will be the greatest. Kill a giant rat nest.
Punched it to death.
That
was harder than I thought it was going to be. Though.
Yeah. What I had to keep doing is I'd go into Berserk, I'd punch its legs, get out of Berserk, run up on the cliff's edge, shoot rockets at it as my Berserk recharged, take a shotgun and kill the racks. And then once it was recharged, I'd go back in, leap off the cliff, and start punching its legs again.
And we haven't really stopped to describe the way that things look because it doesn't matter. Bandits look like guys in dark military uniforms, or they're naked from the waist up and they wear gas masks. And the Crimson Lance guys, or whatever they're called, the Crimson Brigade or Legion.
We haven't gotten that far yet.
Who cares? They look like soldiers. I'm sorry, I don't mean to just roll over you, but like the aesthetics of Borderlands isn't the reason you play. It is the most generic game I think that may have come out that generation.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would agree.
So the aesthetics don't matter, but I actually did kind of like the rack hive because it was just unexpected. Racks, for those who are not initiated, are big pterodactyls in the sky that attack you occasionally. And that's it. They're nothing more than just big pterodactyls in the sky that dive at you. They're just a nuisance. And if you get a good shield by the end of the game, they just blow up on impact. They don't even do any damage. But the rack hive, which you'd think would be like, a big bee nest or something, is actually a four-legged walking colossal cow. And the racks, like, live inside of it. It's really weird. And it's like 10 times your height. So Brick, who's the biggest of the characters, and I do respect Borderlands for this, the character heights really do make a difference to perspective.
The character heights and the character widths.
Yeah, the character widths too. You can't fit through all the gaps as Brick.
Nope.
As the tallest of the characters, you're still barely higher than its ankle. So Kyle running around and just punching it is quite an image. This was my favorite part of the game.
Yeah.
Because it was just so goofy and I'd completely forgotten about it.
Yeah, I did too. You kill Baron Flynn for what you think is the last piece, but you get betrayed by Tannis, and
Tannis is a scientist that's helping you.
Yeah,
another throwaway character just to progress the sketch of the plot.
She joins Commandant Steele.
Blah blah blah. Another person doesn't like you. It's just that the story itself just doesn't,
Yeah, like I said, there's not a whole lot of meat on this one.
No.
Mystery Woman says that without the Echo system, which Commandant Steele shut down, that she is flying blind and the vault can only be opened every 200 years.
At this point in the story, they actually do kind of take the story seriously. And they did a decent job with it.
Well, this is as far as I got. Okay,
that's fine. So like, what's going on is the Echo is your radio. And so the local strongman, which is the Crimson Lance, is the local strongman outfit. Their leader shuts down all of the radio communications in order to basically freeze you out so that you can't catch up. Because the person you'd been working with to unlock this legendary vault has jumped ships, or maybe was never even on your side to begin with.
Maybe.
And I actually think when they paused and they attempted to tell a little bit of a story, they do a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
I was kind of like paying attention. This is the point where I turned off Man on the Moon. And I was actually listening and, engaged and not just yelling and acting like a child. I mean, it was. I was just goofy as I played through because I know I'm not that big of a fan of it. So I had to be my own entertainment as we went. And this is the point where I stopped. And I was like, oh, okay, I get this. This isn't bad. And at this point, they take a step up and they step up to the plate and they swing pretty admirably. But they do whiff. So it's about at this point that you do go through a relatively complex, not quite fetch quest, more like a flip the switch quest. And all of a sudden they take on this alien perspective. And it's not a surprise throughout the game that there are aliens kicking around in this world because you occasionally will run into an alien artifact. And there are references dropped here and there to these aliens called the Iridians. Not to be confused with Iridium, but Iridians, spelled a little different. I don't know why they chose to go with two things that are so phonetically similar.
I don't know.
But they're basically big insect, crystalline aliens. When you get your very first power up, you run into them and you see their statues and stuff, so there's kind of a slow build. They just, like with the rest of the story, drop the ball on this part. So after you get the Echo back, you proceed to chase them to the vault, which Tannis has worked out, and you're able to... I think Tannis is back on your side at this point.
Yeah, because
you get her in the jail.
Yeah, you get her...
She tells you where they're going.
Yeah.
And this takes you to, I think it's called like the Frostbitten Highlands or something like that. And at this point, if you proceed, it's a point of no return. This is where Kyle got trapped.
Yep.
I went in level 34, so I went in substantially more powerful than Kyle did, by dint of just having ground around and explored a little bit and tried to feel my way towards any kind of narrative that might have existed. But all I ever found was the sketch. So you basically hike through frozen mountains, and they slam you with aliens and with regular enemies. You've got your Crimson Lance guys, and you've got the Iridian aliens you've got to fight. And this is essentially a big grind your way to the end. Literally, because it is hard.
Yeah.
And the point is to level you up for the very last boss fight. So you do grind, unless you're Kyle, and you'll make it to the top of the mountain unless you're Kyle. And when you get there, there's the vault, but you're a few seconds too late, and Commander or Commandant Steele, whatever her name is, opens the vault, and a big Lovecraftian purple tentacle monster pops out and kills her. It's called the Destroyer, and you then have to kill it. It comes out of the blue. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense given everything else that the game has told you. I guess it's meant to be a surprise, but it just kind of falls flat on its face because as far as a narrative goes, it's like, cool. And then it spit out a bunch of loot that I couldn't use. I got a bunch of green guns. Hooray. A lot of cash. I got quite wealthy off that fight, but who cares? And then at the very end of the last cutscene in the game, it goes up into space and you get to see all of trash dumpy Pandora in its stinking glory. And you see a satellite that turns on, looks a lot like a claptrap. And then it flips back to the claptrap in Firestone where you started the game. And that claptrap falls over and then jumps up as an interplanetary ninja assassin. Which is a DLC burner. So, I mean... It's not really a narrative. This is what you call an and-then plot. It's not a plot that ever goes anywhere, but you can describe it by going and then, and then, and then, and then, and then, and it just keeps going till it's all done.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
The only real twist, I guess, is the twist that there's the Destroyer at the end. But you knew there had to be a boss. The game is predicated on a series of boss fights.
Yeah.
With periods of intense wave-based grinding before that. And that's exactly what this is. It's not a surprise. It's not characteristic. It's just kind of boring.
Speaking of bosses, did you kill Skagzilla?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I did too.
Punched it to death. First time it punched me to death.
Yeah, the first time it punched me to death too.
And I went back and I gained, I think it was a difference of a level. I think I was 22 and it was 23.
That was another thing that really aggravated me about the game.
Yeah, it did.
If you weren't on par with the enemies, your weapons didn't do the amount of damage that they were supposed to do.
Yep. No, one level should make a difference.
No.
3, 4, 5, I understand, but one level, like, and let's compare this to D&D, right? A level 3 hobgoblin could screw up your character if they're only level 4. You guys know that because the very first time we sat down to play, do you remember the catastrophe that almost happened in the initial fight where, like, we almost wiped the party with 4 or 5 goblins?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's one level difference. But then later on, when you guys fought there was a one-eyed, former wizard thing. I'm drawing a blank on what they're called. But that was a difference of a level, and it gave you a hard time, but you guys were able to overcome it without too much difficulty. It was a level stronger in that case, whereas the goblins were, I think, one below you in terms of their difficulty. And then you guys were able to do everything else. And I know that's a tabletop game, and there's house rules, and you bend to have fun. But I can't think of another video game where one level of difference is night and day the way that Borderlands is.
Yeah,
it's
I
just
know.
Broke.
You know, I went in like Janistown when I was going through trying to do Janistown. Like my sniper rifle that should have been doing 150 damage per shot was doing 10.
Borderlands taught me that your bullets are based on your own strength.
All right, let's talk about the book.
Borderlands Gunsight is technically, I guess, the second in the series, although they're not connected in any meaningful way. The other one was about Roland, who was one of the other playable characters. We didn't even introduce all the playable characters.
No, we didn't.
There's a sniper, a soldier, a psychic, and Brick. You got Mordecai, who's the sniper and the main character of the book. You've got Roland, who's the soldier. You've got Brick, who's the brick. And then you've got a siren, which is like a dimension warping kind of catch-all psychic lady.
Lilith.
The book is ostensibly about Mordecai, although it's got Brick on the cover. The last one was about Roland and I think Lilith too. We covered it in the previous podcast, but it didn't stick. It might have even been a John Shirley book, but I gave it to one of my students and I didn't see it again. Long live that book.
Yep. So the setting of this book is between the first and second.
Yeah,
game.
I noticed that too. I almost wish we'd played the second one.
Yeah.
Although it is longer, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it is.
But it begins just like the game with Marcus telling a story to somebody. And this is how all of the Borderlands games open, actually.
Yeah.
So Marcus catches some kids that break into one of his warehouses and...
in Firestone.
Yeah, it is in Firestone. They don't have any gear, but they're hoping to steal some Vault Hunter gear off of him. So instead of killing them, which is what he intended to do, he takes them hostage, threatens to kill them, and then gives them barbecue and tells them a story. It's a Borderlands intro. It's thematically appropriate, but it's also unnecessary, I guess. I don't know. I don't have an opinion on the way this book begins because I get that it's Borderlands. And just like any Batman movie should always open with like a rainy or snowy shot of Gotham, I'm not going to give the movie credit for doing it that way. It should just give you the establishing shot the way that this does. You know, it does its job, but it sure as heck doesn't excite me. The one thing that I do want to note about this is that I actually thought that they established Marcus's very thick Russian accent pretty well.
Yeah, they did.
They did do. He did do a good job of that. Commendations on capturing the voice, but again, it's just hard to get worked up about something that is standard feature.
Yeah.
The first chapter introduces Mordecai. He is the sniper from the games, lanky, skinny guy. His special power is he has a bird.
Bloodwing.
Who's not actually a bird. It's some sort of reptilian alien.
Some kind of like cross between a rack and a crow.
They never really tell you what it is. He doesn't seem to know. Bloodwing just coexists, I guess.
Yeah.
Mordecai is drunk, and he is pondering the pointlessness of life from the top of his tower in the north of Pandora.
First world problems.
Yeah, right. Well, I think Pandora's like fourth world, but... He wants to go raiding, I guess. He's existentially bored.
Restless.
Restless is a good way to describe that without sounding pontificating. While his girlfriend Daphne wants him to conquer the surrounding terrain and set up a little society, like a little fiefdom or kingdom.
Yeah.
Because in Borderlands, we don't take democracy for granted. Got nothing to add to that.
No.
There's no more to it. He wants to drink and shoot stuff. She wants him to go conquer stuff and govern. And since he doesn't see things her way, she does what any woman would do and tries to seduce him. Which introduces the first of my issues with this book. It is really immature about sexuality.
Yeah, it is.
And about relationships.
Yep.
Everything is distilled down to sex and...
Killing things.
But essentially she comes out in like a nightie and tries to get him to make a baby because she knows that he is weaker and will agree to things in the heat of the moment.
She's also mad about thinking Mordecai, because Mordecai wants to go make a run to Sanctuary, and she thinks he's going to see Moxie.
Yeah, which comes up later in the book, I guess. That's a consistent character trait. She's very jealous of Moxie. What's a negligee?
You're really going to make me? You really want me to explain this?
I've been waiting for weeks. I put this off a week to ask that question.
It's a very translucent garment.
For your foot, perhaps?
Body.
Whose body, Kyle?
A woman's.
What is the purpose of this translucent foot garment for a woman's body?
I never said foot garment.
I don't like this chapter.
No, I don't
I
like
think
it.
it's a crappy introduction to characters that were already established. Daphne comes up in, I think, the second game. I thought it was weak.
The quote from the book, while I've been trying to describe what a negligee is, about, the immature sexuality, it's like, quote, he had to look away from her in that negligee. She looked smoking hot standing there, and he didn't want to give in, end quote. That's...
Let's not lower ourselves to this book's level.
No, let's not.
I don't like the chapter. I think it would have been almost better if he just had a little dramatis personae at the beginning that said, Mordecai goes with the flow. Daphne wants what she wants. That's essentially what this boils down to.
The end of the chapter ends with Daphne's chasing after Mordecai.
Who decides to go anyway.
Yeah.
He blows her off, basically, and takes his little elevator down, and she comes after him.
Bandits attack her runner.
Not a very particularly strong introduction. I do remember the other book left more of an impression than that after the first one. Chapter 2, Mordecai. Mordecai inspects the wreck, and he finds nothing except for a couple dead psychos who populate Pandora. They're just local drug addicts that attack you and sometimes get organized.
Strip the flesh, salt the wounds.
A bandit leader from Gunsight radios Mordecai, and he says that he's holding Daphne for ransom, and that Mordecai has to go do an unscrupulous job for him. This guy's introduced as Jasper.
Jasper. I have a cat named Jasper.
You do. I like that cat more than I like this Jasper.
Yeah, so do I.
Which was really hard for me knowing that. I pictured him as Jasper the entire time. It made the book a little better for me.
I believe I sent you a picture of Jasper in between where my stairs go up. The banister. He was in kitty jail. And your response was Mordecai went really gentle on Jasper.
Something like that, yeah. So he says basically like, if you want your girlfriend back, you got to do an unscrupulous job. And I think Mordecai has a moment here of, do I care that much? But he's a go with the flower, and he doesn't really have a lot of personal integrity. And so he just decides to go get Daphne back because he's got to make the book move on.
Yeah.
What you're saying? Not your monkey, not your circus, not your problem, right? The way that she was talking to him, it was almost not his circus. A matter of like 15 minutes might have made up the difference there. Then we switch over the point of view to Daphne in a cell. Her jailers, Volto and Ripper. Ripper is a recurring character. Volto, for reasons, is not. Reaffirm exactly how deadly she is and how perilous is her situation. And then finally, we meet a claptrap in another point of view shift. His name is Extra 87, who is for mysterious reasons racing to intercept Mordecai. And at first it sounds like he's schizophrenic, but we're going to get to that.
Actually, you find out.
They just give us the woman's voice, right? They don't really explain what the heck's going on.
No. Her name is Eleonora Dufty.
Try as I might, I couldn't find a reference to her in the game. And Lindsay couldn't remember from Borderlands 2 if she was actually a character in the game or not. But I feel like that would have been a reference, particularly with the way that Tanis behaves. And there are other scientist characters. You think that this character would have gotten a mention somewhere in there. That was one of the reasons why I ground all over was because I was looking for reference to Dufty in Borderlands 1. And I couldn't find it if it was there. So it might just be a throwaway character.
Maybe. Let's move on.
Chapter 3. Mordecai and Bloodwing arrive at Jasper's place, a town called Gunsight, which is walled and heavily fortified. Ripper escorts Mordecai through the fortress and then clues him into Jasper's gimmick. He likes to raid everyone else. So he robs from other people, which is kind of ironic because the mission that Mordecai is about to get sent on is caused by somebody else stealing from him. There is a little brick reference somewhere in here, but it's dinky.
Yeah, because
I was afraid this was it.
This is where Mordecai asked Jasper, "Well, why me?" And Jasper says, "Well, because you're stealthy, and Brick is not."
Which is stupid because it ultimately turns out that Jasper wants Mordecai to bring his enemy down anyway. Brick would have been the better tool.
Brick.
Finally, we flip to Jasper's tower where we meet him for real. He's a squat, bearded, bejeweled, chainmailed, fruity. They bring this up several times that he's fruity. And with a periscope on his head.
Yeah.
I don't like the book, and also to a lesser degree, the games. Like, there's a lot of homophobia.
Oh, yeah.
Wrapped up in this book between the way that they treat Jasper as a character and Fleuron later on.
Yeah.
And in the first game, too, I noticed it.
Oh, yeah.
It was surprising and jarring. We're recording this 10 years after the game's release, and I don't remember mentally where I was 10 years ago. But I remember even then using slurs against gays. It was on the out, you know. That was, when we were in high school, you know, to call somebody gay was an insult.
Yeah.
I don't hear that anymore as a teacher. I don't hear racial insults, and I don't hear homophobic insults.
That actually kind of surprises me.
It was something that we were talking about a little while ago, a couple years ago, not a little while ago, but my wife and I realized we don't hear racial slurs very often. We don't hear gay slurs very often.
Wow.
We hear class-based slurs occasionally. Mostly what we hear is just profanity, which, if that's the lesser of three evils, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the book's mentality was just in a less accepting time point or whatever, but it was definitely jarring to hit characters the way that they're described with Jasper and Fleuron. And I think for anybody that's reading this who is not homophobic to begin with, you're gonna give pause to the way that the characters are treated.
Yeah.
So that's Jasper. He's kind of a dandy.
Whatever.
That's him. Cool. And he sends Mordecai on a suicide mission to go inspect Remus, who is his main enemy, who has stolen from him, and who he suspects is doing some nebulous big bad thing. That's it. That's what Mordecai's got to do. In chapter 4, Jasper runs Mordecai all the way through the suicide mission, and then agrees to let him see Daphne. And so Mordecai and Bloodwing are escorted down to the jail cell where Daphne is being kept. Daphne manages to get out because the guards are idiots, and they nearly escape until the little helicopter that they steal is remote control returned to the base, just like Kendra was in Dead Space. So then they get captured again.
Yep. Volto dies here.
Oh yeah, that's right. Volto doesn't stick around because Daphne kills him. Anything else?
Nope.
Cool. Mordecai and Daphne in Chapter 5 are taken to a special holding cell. This one is not just a jail cell, but it's rather a big cylindrical room with an attached bathroom. It's got a big bed and a TV set and a dresser and I think a booze bar. But the thing is, the entire room is suspended over a big plate that can dump inwards and dump the occupant or occupants into the big badass psycho down below.
Big Jaws.
Big Jaws, who would have been a pretty good boss in game.
Yeah.
This part really reminds me of something from Borderlands, the game.
Yeah. More
so than anything else so far. This setup scenario reminded me of something that might have happened in the game. So I did like that. With a touch of a button, Jasper reveals that he can dump the occupant into the cage below, and then he then explains that he had allowed the breakout of Daphne and Mordecai basically to break their spirit.
Yay.
Mordecai does his normal thing and goes with the flow, attacks Jasper, fails again, and therefore has no choice but to follow the orders. Now, if he had just decided, you know what, she verbally and mentally and possibly even emotionally abuses me anyway, I don't want to be responsible for her anymore, whole book could have ended here.
Yup.
In Chapter 6, as soon as their captors leave with Mordecai, Daphne is freed and begins thinking up an escape plan. Meanwhile, Ripper flies Mordecai out to the exfil point, and he explains that A, Roland turned the job down, and Brick has no finesse, and so neither were brought on for the job, and B, that Jasper likes to have leverage, and he already has leverage over Ripper himself. Commander Ripper.
Yep.
As soon as he's alone, Mordecai climbs up on top of his Outrunner, the Jeep, and fires into the sky as a little signal for Bloodwing. I thought that was a nice touch.
Yeah.
I wish you could do it in game. You have very little control over the bird in game. Next, Jasper tries to convince Daphne to have sex with him.
Yep. Personal sex slave.
Pretty much, yeah. He's like, yo, you know, you don't need to be a prisoner. You could just break up with Mordecai because he's not coming back from the suicide job, and you can just be my bed slave. And she's like, no thanks.
This is where the immaturity of the book really grabbed me.
It really did hit hard. Like, of all the books that I've done as far as podcasting goes, this one is probably the most immature. Not that it's not fitting with the source material. Again, that's the point, is to observe whether or not these books meaningfully expand the source material. But doesn't mean I gotta like it. Mordecai arrives at Tumessa. Do you know what tumescence is?
No.
It's an erection. So the name of the town is basically Erection.
All right. Kind of fitting.
Fits with Borderlands.
Yeah. And also what happens later. Kind of a double entendre there.
Tumessa is Remus's town.
And Bloodwing returns.
Oh, yeah. Bloodwing returns. That's cool. Chapter 7, Daphne's backstory. We find out that her whole family was murdered, and she gets revenge and then becomes a contract killer and breaks out and then gets betrayed, and she winds up on Pandora kind of by default, hiding out until she meets the Vault Hunters. I thought that would have made for a pretty cool sci-fi novel.
Yeah.
In and of itself. Didn't even need to be tied to Borderlands. Could have just been a really mild tie-in. Throwing ideas out there for John Shirley for when he's free. Meanwhile, Mordecai scouts the terrain around Tumessa, which I kind of liked because he's supposed to be a strategic, tactical sniper. I thought this was in line with his character, scouting the terrain and really getting to know the area before he makes his plan of attack.
Yep.
But we already kind of know what surrounds Tumessa because in Chapter 4, Jasper runs down the entire plan with him anyway.
Yeah.
And he's like, this gate's really heavily guarded, and there's an acid moat over here, and there's these crazy worm things over here. And by the way, you probably can't climb these mountains. So it's kind of just a rehash of the situation.
You forgot about Extra. This chapter opens...
I just haven't even got there yet.
This chapter opens with Extra.
Oh, does it?
Yeah.
Chapter 8 or Chapter 7?
Chapter 8.
I'm on 7.
Oh.
Not that it makes a lot of difference.
No, it
because the
doesn't.
chapters are all pretty short.
Yeah.
But okay, I'll finish 7, then we'll jump into 8.
All right.
Because I thought 8 was more interesting overall. Meanwhile, so he's scouting the terrain. Mordecai's scouting the terrain. Bloodwing gets sent out and takes out a security drone. There's a little gunfight as he tries to sneak into Tumessa. But Mordecai prevails because otherwise the book wouldn't continue, and then he pushes on. It's pretty good combat. I like the tactical use of Bloodwing.
Yep, much better than the game. Because I have played as Mordecai before.
It's just boring. It just attacks whatever's in front of it, right?
Yeah.
Chapter 8, this is where Extra comes in. Extra the Claptrap continues his search for Mordecai. He's getting closer, probably. He's not certain. But he's narrowing down where Mordecai could possibly be. Meanwhile, Mordecai then interrogates a guy named Gurgle, a very Borderlandsy name, who explains that there's some sort of Iridian mine and factory underneath Remus House, which is at the top of Tumessa. That's Remus's, fortress. Gurgle, under duress, confesses to a blind spot over the roof, which is guarded by a bullymong. He also says that Remus is testing genetic mutations to create slag slugs, which are enemies that spit acid or webs.
Glue.
Yeah. And then for whatever reason, Mordecai leaves Gurgle alive. Bloodwing wants to kill him. Always trust the bird. This is one of those times where I don't get the character's motivation for deciding. He's just he feels like he's killed enough people. But these are all bandits. What does he care?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's kind of dumb. It's an info chapter. It doesn't really advance the plot at all. So Mordecai gets into another gunfight because, of course, within 5 minutes, Gurgle comes to fight him again. And he barely escapes with his life in a truck. He heads back to Jasper with his new intel and also a security chip that he pulled out of the chin of one of the thugs. Gurgle clued him into that. They used that to get across the acid moat.
Yep.
So he's going to bring all this back to Jasper, of course, thinking that, he's almost done. But silly Mordecai, you still have 200 pages to go. Anything to add so far?
No.
It's very humdrum.
Yeah, it is.
It's a lot like in the game. It's an and then plot. Jasper, in Chapter 9, having received Mordecai's intel, then declares that he already knew it, of course, because it's that convenient. And he insists that Mordecai return to Remus' house. The mission now is essentially to find a way to kill Remus. So it went from a mission to gather intelligence to an assassination mission, and he still uses Daphne as leverage. Certain point, diminishing returns. Why Mordecai doesn't walk away, I don't know. Since Jasper still has Daphne, he's got no choice. Ripper then takes Mordecai back to the drop-off, and we learn again that Jasper likes to have leverage. This is the third time it's brought up in the book. In this case, Ripper opens up enough to say that the leverage that Jasper has over him is that his son is stationed at one of Jasper's outposts. He doesn't know which, but apparently Jasper has intimated that at any time if Ripper betrays him or doesn't obey, he can have Ripper's son killed. His son's name is Tyno. Then he takes off, leaves Mordecai again. That night, while camped in a cave, Mordecai's attacked by tunnel rats. He drives them back because he's got to advance the plot, but is then discovered by Extra, and also by the crazy woman on board, who is apparently Mordecai's ex, Eleanor Dufty.
Mordecai seems to be a bit of a...
Promiscuous.
There we go.
Which leads to almost all of his troubles.
Yeah. Moxie, Daphne, Eleonora.
There's more.
There's a lot more.
One thing I did notice in this chapter, though, and this had been an on and off problem throughout the book, but particularly in chapter 9, there's a lot of typos.
Yeah, there is.
He flips names. He flips Remus and Jasper's name. He flips Tyno and Ripper's name back and forth.
I noticed the same thing throughout the entire book.
I was writing them down, and then I stopped because there were so many of them.
Yep.
And I think it goes to show the care that was put into the book overall.
Yeah.
This is a paint by numbers.
Yeah, I was going to bring it up at the end about when we got done with the book.
It's not like in Mass Effect where there were like some major consistency errors that just flat out didn't make sense.
Like in the prologue?
In the prologue in the first 3 chapters, it's not that kind of inconsistencies and typos. It's just sloppy. Which is disappointing, but again, it kind of fits the subject matter.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. In chapter 10, Extra then proceeds to confront, well actually really Eleanor proceeds to confront Mordecai. Her get back at Mordecai was to kill herself, upload herself onto a claptrap, and then send the claptrap after him with a special gift, which is definitely not a bomb. I like her plan. I think she's got ambition. She's going to go somewhere in life.
Yeah.
That is probably the most annoying thing you can do to somebody, though, is send a claptrap after them that has no control of itself.
Look here, I'm dancing.
It works as far as the story goes. It's kind of funny. It works. It's not offensive, at least, insofar as it's humorous. Blah 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 blah. The chapter kind of goes on and on and on.
Daphne's still trying to plan an escape route.
Yeah, there's a little audio cue dump to Borderlands 2 where Handsome Jack yells about his unicorn. He yells about like just going to kill yourself at the Vault Hunters over the radio.
Yeah.
Little nod to Borderlands 2. In 11, Mordecai survives the fight's opening.
Yep, it's a mercenary group hunting Extra.
Oh, right.
Because Handsome Jack is trying to kill all...
That's why there's that little cue, isn't there?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Well, so let's walk that back. What happens?
Mordecai, there's a group of mercenaries hunting Extra.
Because he's a claptrap.
Because he's a claptrap. And Handsome Jack is trying to kill all of the claptraps on the planet. No one knows why.
Handsome Jack is the chief antagonist of the second game. All right.
The big H in the sky.
Yeah, that does get referenced in the beginning, doesn't it?
Hyperion, yeah. I got P.
While he's away, I want to just note that we sound down on the game and the book, but when we set up the list of the game and book companions that we were going to do, we picked games that we thought people would be into rather than what we thought ourselves would be into in order to try to appeal to a broader audience. And in this case, more so I think than with Mass Effect, it just kind of backfired because neither of us are particularly passionate. So if you like Borderlands, cool, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't let us disparage it. Just turn this off and walk away because we're not going to be positive about this.
No.
At best, I'm going to be neutral and he's going to be negative. Just be honest with yourself. If you disagree with us, cool. That's awesome. I'm glad that you've got Borderlands, which is a gift that will keep on giving if you're into the loot system.
Yeah.
If you're not, let me recommend a different first-person shooter or RPG or RTS, or go read a book, dude. It's cool.
Yeah. Wholeheartedly agree with that statement.
Yeah, I'm not gonna give anybody bones because they
Yeah.
don't like the games that I like. I get that you might not like Pillars of Eternity because it takes too long to play. It's boring, and you might not like Civ because it's essentially the same game over and over again. I kind of feel the same way about Borderlands, but I see it from the other perspective. So like, even though we're being pretty negative,
Yeah, we are being pretty
and
negative
really
about
blasé about this. That's just our experience, and we're speaking that reality aloud. It's cool if you like Borderlands.
Yep.
Some people really dig the loot system. Some people get really cool draws and they like to pray at the altar of RN Jesus. So some people, that's what does it. And if that's what does it for you, that's cool. It just didn't do it for us. And I was pretty disappointed because the book is so paint by the numbers.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump back into it. I felt like it was important to stop and point that out because I did feel like we were getting really, blow it off, be negative.
Yeah.
But we're just speaking our own experiences about it. So Extra has mercenaries chasing him. Mordecai survives the fight because, again, the book couldn't advance if he didn't, and he's a vault hunter, so he's naturally more powerful than everybody else. But he is forced into an outcrop of rocks where he gets into kind of a pinch, but then Brick arrives.
Yep.
And Brick saves him by literally throwing a rock so hard it decapitates a bandit.
Yeah.
Which is quite an intro. After the fight, we learn that Brick is actually on his way to go work for Remus, which is awkward.
Yeah.
In Chapter 12, Mordecai then explains to Brick that why don't we work together instead and share the profit so that he doesn't have to fight Brick, because he'd lose, and he knows it. So they camp in the crevice, and then in the morning, a little girl shows up, being chased by bandit.
No, she's running away from a convoy.
So a little girl shows up being chased by a bandit.
No, she's not being chased. She escapes from a convoy.
They're coming after her.
No, they're not.
Don't they turn around and come right up?
No.
That would make too much sense in this case.
Yes, it would.
So then Brick acts like she's a little puppy, and Mordecai is touched inside of his little heart. There's some funny dialogue. That's about it. Brick is a big puppy dog when it comes down to it.
Yep. Brick kind of shows his lack of intelligence here.
And also his big mama bear side.
Yeah. Little girl's name is Fina.
Fina, right. In Chapter 13, Jasper gives Daphne a deadline to be his biddy of 48 hours, while Brick and Mordecai then discover, through Fina, that she's running from slavers. They're not just bandits, they're slavers. And that they were taken from a nearby town, along with what's left of her family, i.e. her molester uncle.
Brick don't take kindly to that one.
Well, he doesn't learn it yet. He learns it later on. But Brick doesn't take kindly to anybody. There's a little drop here to Brick's tiny back history. He used to own a dog, and he wears the dog paw around his neck, which is actually on the cover.
It is. When that was referenced, I looked at the cover to see if it was on there.
I did too. I flipped back and I looked at it. I was like, oh, huh. I wonder if that's in the game, but I didn't care enough to go try to find out. Brick is very tender with the girl, surprising Mordecai again. Fina mentions that Tyno, Commander Ripper, the son, is down with the slavers, so now Mordecai has a motivation to get involved. There's a big crazy fight. Brick goes into berserk mode for the first time and is effectively just running around in the background screaming and killing things, and they prevail. Brick! John Shirley, when he writes combat, does it competently.
Yes, he does.
I can't say he's great at it, but he's good enough at it. It's a Borderlandsy fight. There's an interlude where we are forcibly and unwelcomely reminded that Marcus is telling the story. Nothing else that happens matters. Did you care about the interlude?
Not particularly. What about Fina?
For those of you who couldn't see, because you're listening to the audio podcast, one eye just rolled back in my head. In chapter...
Did I just break you?
I think I may have just had like 3/4 of an aneurysm. In Chapter 14, Brick and Mordecai free the slaves, and they send them on their way.
Pickle!
I don't even know where he thinks he's going.
He wants outside, desperately.
He'll just try and dig and dig and dig. Sometimes he does it for hours, too.
Alright, let's get back to this.
Now that he's done?
Yeah.
Chapter 14, Brick and Mordecai free the slaves. They send them on their way, except for Tyno, to whom Mordecai gives his outrunner. Pretty fair trade. His freedom for a Jeep.
Yeah.
You once experienced a very similar trade, didn't you?
I did. A Hellboy DVD for an O2 Alero.
Pretty sure I still got the better end of that deal. Hellboy 1 and Thor 2. Now you can tell them apart.
That is actually the basis of the name of my character in the diecast.
Oh, Leaky.
Leaky.
I never put that together.
Exile of the Golden Tur clan.
Back at the camp. Mordecai gives Tyno Ripper's Echo contact so that he can get back in touch with his dad, and also gives Tyno a message to give his dad from Mordecai.
Yep.
In exchange, basically, for his freedom. Back at the camp, they're then accosted by Eleonora through Extra as they try to disguise themselves in Reamer clothes to sneak in. She tells them that Extra contains a powerful secret weapon that she'll use only after Mordecai has paid, capital P.
Yep.
They didn't come to a decision on whether or not to abandon the claptrap because Phoenix shows up again because she ran away again. In this case, she actually had a good reason to run away.
Yeah, this is where we find out about the molester uncle.
Yep. Chapter 15 opens up with Fina explaining that she ran away because her uncle, one of the freed slaves, is a sexual predator. He likes to put his hands down her pants sometimes, and she doesn't like it. Made me cringe.
Yeah, made me cringe too.
For those of you in the back who can hear the scratching, scraping in the background, that is my cat earnestly attempting to burrow his way through a glass door. There's not a lot we can do about it, because if we put him in the bedroom, he will just yell from there. Obviously, she can't travel to Remus' house to go kill this giant psycho with Mordecai and Brick, so she goes with Tyno and Ripper to go become a nomad. Again, would have been a more interesting book.
Yeah.
Brick promises to visit.
Yep.
After they leave, Brick and Mordecai then drive in disguise back to Tumessa, which is where Remus lives, where they're questioned but allowed in, and are told to report to Remus' house itself. The jig is kind of up.
I have a couple of Brick quotes written down because I think that's kind of the highlight of the book. Mordecai tells Brick to put on the bruiser mask, and Brick responds with, "But it smells of bruiser." I thought that was pretty good.
The last little bit that we get is that Mordecai instructs Ripper to leave a gift for Daphne. We don't know what the gift is, but you could take an educated guess. It's Borderlands. It's got to be a gun. I don't know what to do with them. Chapter 16, Daphne lures Jasper in by calling in his booty call. He arrives with an armed guard, but she opens fire with the machine pistol that Mordecai had sent her through Ripper. Of course, Jasper survives, and then they dump her into the pit. Daphne has a little bit of a close call with Big Jaws, but she shoots him in the nuts, and then climbs up the food chute that he's got, barely surviving. She kills the guards at the top, and then begins her rampage/escape. Anything to add?
No.
Alright, Chapter 17, Mordecai and Brick are captured, but this time, Bloodwing is not given permission to enter.
Yep.
They're led to Fleuron, an effete man who is Remus's... I got the feeling that this was an assistant/lover.
Yep.
That's the tone that I got from the dialogue. But it was tough to suss out because it was so peppered with homophobia.
I would agree with that.
So I don't know if that's me reading into...
No, because there's a little bit of
dialogue.
dialogue with Florian and Daphne later. Kind of susses that out a little bit more.
Yeah, it's tough to tell if that's just the way that the dialogue reads, because both Daphne and Mordecai are homophobic in their tone, and since we're experiencing it through their lens, I don't know if that's that coming out or if he is just a gay man and Remus is a gay man also. I don't know. I don't care.
Neither
I
do
just don't like the way it was handled.
Nope.
Fleuron leads Mordecai and Brick to Remus, a huge four-armed mutant. He threatens to kill them, but then Mordecai gives him info on where Jasper is going to be. This was part of the message that he sent with Ripper, basically convincing Jasper to go to a place called Corpse Crevice.
Yep. Where he said that Remus would be.
Yeah. So he is trying to get the two bosses to work against one another. It's pretty smart, but
yeah.
I mean, he also didn't need to go back for Daphne. Remus is intrigued, but he wants the information confirmed, which is smart. He's definitely the smartest villain in the book. So in the meantime, he promises to let Brick and Mordecai use the guest suite, which turns out to be a bullymong pit.
It's a ledge.
It's a ledge above the bullymong pit, which was referenced earlier during the interrogation with Gurgle.
Yep.
I thought that was nice that he tied that back in. In Chapter 18, then, they fight the bullymong. Brick has kind of a funny funny little fight scene here. But it's too powerful, so Mordecai tricks it into busting through the facility by getting it to knock in the door that they came through. And then both Remus's men and the Vault Hunters are strong enough to kill the Bullymong.
Again, another little comic relief from Brick. I killed it.
Yeah.
But Mordecai doesn't have the heart to tell him that 2 rocket rounds hit it at the same time and actually killed it.
In 19, then, advancing the plot just a little bit, Daphne takes a break from murder to decide whether she should kill Jasper or just run for it. Meanwhile, Brick and Mordecai argue about what to do now. Should they go visit Fina, quit, or stick around since Remus has effectively given them free rein after botching the Bullymong execution? They decide to stick around for reasons. Extra arrives. I'd kind of forgotten he wasn't even with them. And then they all head to Corpse Crevice to see what Jasper and Remus are going to do to each other, I guess. Except that then Tumessa explodes, the town explodes, and it reveals that Remus House is the top of a massive landship, which then drives towards Corpse Crevice.
Yep.
So apparently the thing that Mordecai had found out a little bit of intelligence on wasn't a mine, it was a vehicle being built underground that crushes the town as it leaves.
Very Borderlandsy.
Thematically appropriate. I didn't really have a problem with this chapter. It's just, straightforward. Yep. I do like the way that he skips beats to see how the different characters... Like, he uses his focal points effectively.
Yeah.
It was an issue that we had with Dead Space, was that sometimes the points of view would just go on for so long without a break, and then you'd be exhausted because you're like, this should be several chapters.
Yeah.
Shirley avoids this problem by periodically and also rapidly interjecting other points of view.
Yeah, we had the same problem with Nexus Uprising, too.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, too many points of view that went on too long.
Yep.
So this big land ship is 400 feet long. It's got tread action. It's obviously headed to Corpse Canyon, and Mordecai realizes that they're going to get to Gunsight. They have to get to Gunsight to rescue Daphne before Remus gets there with the landship and destroys everything. But then they're attacked.
By Reamers.
Which are just bandits on his dole.
Yeah.
This is a weakness in the narrative overall, random attacks. Instead of advancing the plot, but instead of going C to D, you got to go to C.5 because it doesn't ever meaningfully advance the plot. In this case, they're going to be sidetracked in Moxie's arena for a chapter or two, but they don't get anything for being there. They don't learn anything from being there. In this case, it's just to drop a name and plug some DLC.
Yep.
That's all this is. So in Chapter 20, Brick and Mordecai fight their way through the Reamer's first wave, but they are eventually driven into the nearby Moxie's arena, which is awfully conveniently located.
Yep.
They crash into the dome, and Moxie saves them. But the trade-off for having their skins saved is that they need to fight in the dome. So they have to, do a Thunderdome style. One fight, and it's over. And of course, being Vault Hunters, the fight is over almost as soon as it begins. But they can't go anywhere, because now the bandits, in the meantime, the Reamers, have laid siege.
That's Chapter 21.
I know, I'm getting there. I'm setting up. So they can't go anywhere. That's it. Oh, that is totally just Chapter 21, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
They blended right together. So Chapter 20 and 21, they get into Moxie's dome, and then they fight, and then they can't go anywhere. There's a twofer. I did have one thought here as I was reading. Are Gunsight and Tumessa like 2 miles apart?
Apparently.
In Chapter 21, then just to be... the thing that I left out is that Daphne gets trapped in a broom closet because the land ship arrives.
Yep, and she uses a buffing robot.
I like the buffing robot, the semi-intelligent floor stone polisher and buffer to rip apart the ceiling of the closet. I thought that was kind of fun.
Yep.
But again, those two towns must be awful close together for that land ship to have gotten there so quickly. Because there's no time lost here.
No.
Between 20, 21, and 22, I mean, we're talking about a matter of 15 minutes. Because they finish the fight, and then Moxie goes upstairs and cooks some food for them. Jumping forward, at 22, they have a meal. Brick has 4 pots of skag chili. Okay, it's in character, I guess. Moxie tries to convince Mordecai to just leave Daphne and abscond with her. But of course he doesn't want to because he doesn't have two wits to rub together. And they fight their way through the Reamer wave.
Yep, in a hail of gunfire and Brick's fists.
Yes. Fun berserk. Ho-hum fight.
Yeah.
Extra arrives and drives him away and whatever.
Pretty much.
And that's kind of how the chapter ends. The chapter almost ends with a whatever.
Yeah.
In 23, it jumps back to Gunsight. Daphne then moves through the ruin. She sees Jasper's crew stumble, harrowed and broken, back into town. But before she can draw a bead on Jasper, his scouts see her, and she gets distracted. In the meantime, Big Jaws shows up and bites Jasper's head off.
And then is subsequently killed.
Oh, yeah. Usually when your head's taken off, you're killed. Unless it's
No. Big Jaws is subsequently
killed. Oh, I
killed.
see. So Big Jaws is subsequently killed. Yeah. The mercenaries, now not being on Jasper's paycheck, basically cut and run.
Yep.
Leaving her alone.
Convenient.
Yeah, awful convenient, right? She goes down there and it's like, I wish it was me, but Big Jaws did a pretty good job anyway. And that's about it.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Mordecai and Brick come back to Gunsight, which is only apparently like 100 yards from Tumessa, and they discover the wreckage, concluding that Daphne is dead.
By a noseless survivor.
Yeah. They investigate one of the more or less intact sections of town. They get into another firefight with some looters. They get some more loot, and then they scuttle on. Because Mordecai and Brick are effectively cockroaches in this story.
Yep. Daphne's still alive and captured by Remus's forces now.
Yep. 25. In the non-ruined part of town that they were investigating,
there's a robot shop.
There's a robot computer shop, and they use that to investigate Extra's internals. And they discover he has a bomb. There's a brief moment where Extra says, I can't deactivate it, until Mordecai's like, well, then I'm going to have to abandon you. And then Extra's like, no, wait, it's cool. I deactivated it.
Typical claptrap fashion.
Yeah. To be fair, Mordecai is super suspect of this, which is how I'd be. He makes Extra drive another outrunner behind them at a distance.
Yeah.
Just fair enough.
For the rest of the book.
Yeah. At the same time, Daphne awakes strapped to a table. Fleuron is there. He is, again, Remus's questionable secretary, and he kind of explains that he knows Daphne by reputation, and when she offers to help him get off planet, he panics and then runs away.
Yep.
Fair enough. If you do know her reputation, you would run. Mordecai and Brick, meanwhile, decide to attack the land ship, which we now learn is called the Crusher, the old-fashioned way, because Extra won't blow itself up to destroy it. But first, Mordecai needs to gather allies. Anything?
Nope.
No, okay. 26, Daphne struggles to no avail. Mordecai goes to get the tunnel rats. They feed them some fresh corpses. Tunnel rats, by the way, are subterranean-dwelling mole men, cannibals. They're in Borderlands 2, but they're kind of a throwaway enemy.
They're inbreds.
I thought the dialogue and the little bit of world building was kind of fun in a Borderlands-y sense.
Chief engineer.
Yes. Don't insult them. They feed them some fresh Reamer corpses and then demand to speak to the chief engineer. And at last, Daphne kills her guard, almost freeing herself, but Fleuron comes in and realizes she might be really useful to him because he knows his own life is on the line. Because Remus is getting bored of him, I suppose.
Yeah.
In 27, Mordecai strikes a deal with the chief tunnel rat engineer. Brick offends them, but Mordecai manages to smooth it over, while Daphne and Fleuron plot an escape together.
Didn't see that one coming. Sarcasm.
In 28, Mordecai wakes up from a nightmare, and he finds himself in Roland's apartment in Sanctuary, hungover. Brick is down in Moxie's bar, so drunk he couldn't get up from the bar, covered with 3 basically naked young women.
Yeah.
Again, immature 12-year-old sexuality. And while in Sanctuary, Mordecai manages to buy a huge Iridian howitzer-style cannon, one of a kind, from Marcus.
Marcus, who was reluctant to sell it because it had been untested.
Yeah. And they're going to use this to blow a hole in the side of the Crusher. The tunnel rats, meanwhile, are digging a tunnel to intercept and trap it. It's a pretty good plan overall.
Yeah.
You know, it's trying to have a plot.
Just like the end of the game, you know, it
picks up.
It picks up right at the end and then just kind of falters again.
Yeah, it just fizzles. I have written here in my notes, they get into a stupid fight with a Thresher and then meet back up with Extra and then head to the climax. My notes got as blasé as the book did. Last little bit that happens in 28 is that Daphne and Fleuron try to escape in an outrunner from the Crusher, but at the last second, the tunnel rats cave in the ground underneath the Crusher, tipping it over, and of course, as with everything else in the book, as soon as they attempt to advance the plot in a meaningful way, and then something happens, and then they get knocked out.
Yeah, pretty much. 29.
The fight begins. The tunnel rats attack. Brick and Mordecai attack. Daphne and Fleuron being pinned down in the wreckage. Fleuron is probably concussed, but there's no stupid bathroom argument in this book, at least.
No.
Poo-frayed. Daphne is virtually unhurt. She does drag Fleuron along, which surprised me because she's supposed to be a cutthroat, but she, I don't know, brings this dude along with her. Brick and Mordecai...
She gave him his word.
She gave him his word?
She gave him her word.
Oh. Brick and Mordecai fight towards the Crusher with the cannon.
Brick loves the cannon.
Brick wants to marry the cannon.
Brick does want to marry the cannon.
Those would be some funky babies.
Yes, they would. Quote Mordecai.
Mordecai sends Bloodwing in. We get some nice little tactical fighting here. Brick shoots a hole in the hull, but before they can enter, the tunnel rats turn traitor and try to attack them. Bloodwing brings Mordecai a note from Daphne saying that she's stuck in the back. Don't ask me how she got it. And then Mordecai runs after her, but of course he has to fight his way to the back.
Of course.
In 30, Mordecai discovers Daphne and Fleuron who are trapped. They warn that Remus is probably in his living armor. And Brick decides to head down to the Crusher with the cannon while Daphne and Fleuron go back up to the Outrunner at what they're doing. It's sloppily written, this part.
Yeah.
It's very fudgy.
It is very hastily written.
This is where Brick explains that he started killing the tunnel rats because they turned on him.
Oh.
It's another drop line, whatever. Before they can go with, Remus arrives in a giant suit of spider armor. Borderlands.
Yeah, that's very Borderlands. That was all I could think of. Yep.
Daphne and Fleuron get a call on Mordecai's Echo from Moxie, who claims that Mordecai has been cheating on Daphne, who gets mad and then decides to leave. Very juvenile.
Yep.
I don't really know what Moxie's endgame is.
Neither do I.
It seems just to be an antagonist, but whatever. She wears a little hat, so she's sexy, I guess.
And the cleavage. Don't forget about the cleavage.
My notes say boss fight.
Pretty much. And it ends with Extra blowing Remus up.
Remus overpowers them at the last second. Extra arrives in the Outrunner.
Brick gets impaled.
Escape. Brick gets impaled. Extra takes one for the team. Oh, God, I forgot about how I finished the notes.
Oh, God.
Extra blows himself up as soon as they're out of range, proving that Mordecai did have a friend after all.
Oh, my God.
I didn't realize that Mordecai's social status was in question.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
That was a strange line. But anywho, Daphne and Fleuron then wait a while at the spaceport outside Firestone, which is where you begin the first game, by the way.
Yep.
Not that you'd have known there was a spaceport there. When it's very clear that Mordecai isn't coming, Daphne leaves, mooting the entire point of the book to save her.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mordecai goes home. He finds a note explaining why Daphne chose to leave. He realizes that he could never have been happy with her, and she could never have been happy with him, because he is just too addicted to Pandora. And then I quote, or whatever, so he's okay with that. No, wait, what is this? What the heck did I write at the end?
Oh my God. Your notes look like a child wrote them.
I got real mad at the end of the book. And then Marcus hires the kids
to do barbecue.
That's what I have written here. I know I dropped things. I just, at the end, I didn't care. I forgot about the drawings at the top.
Oh my God. All right, so this is where I'll pick it up, I suppose.
Oh, it's been a month since I read the book. Kyle was behind and I was way ahead. I forgot how I wrapped the notes up.
So Marcus wants to hire the kids to work in his new barbecue business. Like in the epilogue, he posts a job on the Firestone job board. And Brick shows up at the end. Quote, Marcus looked at him with surprise. Brick, what are you doing here? Thought you were in Crom's Canyon. Sometimes, Brick shrugged. My nomad partners and me are working in this territory for now. I got a quarter ton of badass skag out here for you. A lot of meat on it. Where's my money? And that's the end of the book. That made me giggle. Do you feel this added anything meaningful to the game universe?
Having discussed it for just shy of 2 hours now, I think it does add some meaningful context to the game. Because the game has just... Hear me out.
All right.
The game has so little context to begin with. There's so little character in Borderlands. It isn't just Borderlands. It's its own set of character. That it's a fair, fine tale of adventure set within that premise. Like if you think of Dungeons & Dragons, Dungeons & Dragons has a character as a game, but it doesn't have characters. And so that's up to the campaign books and to the players to flesh the characters out. And I think the book does that. I could see this entire mission being a really well-written DLC within the game. I feel like it does expand on what Pandora is, and to a little bit of a degree it does bridge the gaps pretty well between the first two games.
I'm going to have to disagree.
We're adults and we can have different opinions.
We can. I don't think this adds anything meaningful. It was written as nonsense throughout the entire book. That's that's all I could think of, is this is just nonsense.
The whole plot could have been solved simply with
Mordecai just walking away. It's an idiot plot. Oh my God, it's an idiot and then plot.
I don't disagree with anything you said. I just think within the greater context of what Borderlands is, Borderlands 1, I suppose, in particular, I just think the story in this book is better than the story in that game.
I will give you that. However, I still don't feel that this added anything meaningful.
Fair enough. I think this one is less successful than the previous book.
By leaps and bounds. By absolute leaps and bounds.
Well, I mean the previous Borderlands book that we did.
Oh.
That's not a podcast that current listeners would have access to. It's been taken down since. But then Dead Space, yeah, Dead Space is...
That's so what I was going by. Yeah.
That's in a league of its own.
You and I we've really been doing the ups and downs and ups and downs. We started with Andromeda. That was another book that got thrown across the room. And then Dead Space was fantastic. And now we go to Borderlands, which got tossed across the room again. So
this would be a fair time then for you, fearless listener, to reach out to us through Twitter or through webpage comments or Facebook or whatever. And if you did read the book or if you read the book along with us, let us know what you think, because we're at an impasse here. I think it's positive. At worst, it's neutral. At best, it's positive. Kyle thinks it's just not worth it. It's just not a meaningful expanse.
It's nonsense. This is the first one you and I are going to disagree on.
Fair enough.
So, I think this is one of the very few that you and I will disagree on that we've got planned so far.
Probably. So if you have an opinion about Borderlands itself, which I think we're both neutral to negative on as a game experience, but we've got very different opinions of the book. Let us know what you think, because if
reach out to us at on Twitter at Canon Fodder Pod, or leave comments on the website or email us.
The website's Canon Fodder Podcast. CANON.
Yep.
Fodder Podcast.
Twitter is spelled the same way.
Yep.
CANON.
And I think I'd actually like to hear some listener opinions on this if we can drum them up.
Absolutely. I would love to hear some listener opinions on this one.
I really I have some huge issues with the book. I really don't like the treatment of all of its female characters.
No.
I realize that as a man, saying that woman's written wrong is a little edgy.
Little bit of a hot button topic.
A little bit. But I think that all of the women are basically just damsels in distress, or written as promiscuous,
moxie,
like greedy caricatures.
Yeah,
it's very immature. It bothers the hell out of me. The book is homophobic and pretty sexist too, but the game doesn't stride too far from that. It's kind of lockstep, unfortunately.
Yeah. But anyway, so our next one is Star Wars: The Force Unleashed. You've just recently played the game, and you had some issues with it.
Had some huge issues, not with the game, but with the UI and the controls specifically, that we'll get into next time.
Yep.
So if you want to read along with us, these podcasts release once every 2 weeks. And so we've got 6 plus 1 bonus episode for a nice round holy 7. And we are looking for comments. We're looking for feedback.
Absolutely. Any way that you think we can improve the podcast, any suggestions for our next series.
Yeah, we would really appreciate some reader-based suggestions for Series 2, which will be next fall. It'll come out, but more information is going to be up on the site as we build that list.
And make sure you listen to Diecast.
Diecast is our companion podcast. It is not safe for work because it is riddled with profanity.
Yes.
But it is a Dungeons & Dragons 5e podcast starring Kyle as Leaky, Exile of the Golden Tur, a dwarf barbarian, and starring Jen, who is on the Dead Space podcast, as Cesaria, an elven rogue who is the wielder of Drown.
Yes.
And it's a fun podcast because we straight up abandoned a previous campaign book from before we started recording. And so the characters are way over leveled for it, which leads to some pretty goofy moments where
it does.
I'm stacking the odds enormously in my favor, and they just hobo rush and gate crash through all of the challenges that I set up. That'll get evened out as we go, but right now it's been a lot of fun to record, and I'm the dungeon master of it, and Malignant God of Dice. So check those out. That one is going to be much more regular than
we're going to try and keep that one out on a regular basis at every 2 weeks.
So that's it for this podcast. I guess we're going to need you to break our tie here. Borderlands Gunsight is, if nothing else, a divisive volume.
Yep. I have been Kyle Newcomb.
I am still currently Travis Knight.
We hope you keep listening. The Canon Fodder Podcast is produced and hosted by Travis Knight and Kyle Newcomb. Theme music composed by Lucas Knight. Logo designed by Thomas Rigby. Follow the Canon Fodder Podcast on Twitter at Canon Fodder Pod, or contact us through our website, canonfodderpodcast.com. And that's CANON. If you like this show, leave us a review on your podcast provider of choice. Thanks for listening. Brick, 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 brick. He had to look away from her in that negligee. She looked smoking. Brick.